Have you ever said, if this works, I'll be an instant success? Well, if so, I'm going to share with you today why that's a myth and why you need to stop saying that and what to say instead. So stay tuned and you're going to learn what it is that you need to do. If it took 20 years for your dream to become a reality, would that be okay with you? Now, most of us would say, no way. We want it to happen way before the 20-year period. But that was the reality for Zig Ziglar. If you don't know anything about the story and life of Zig Ziglar, I'd encourage you to learn more about him. It was inspiring. More than anything, he wanted to be a full-time speaker. But it took him 20 years for that to become a reality. When he was asked, why did you keep doing it? His simple reply was, because the dream had me. Is that your case? Does the dream have a hold of you? If so, I want to encourage you today to settle in for the long haul. It's one of the critical mindsets, and it's success trait number 3, patience. Learning to value the long term over the short term. So let me share with you some principles from this book. It's in chapter number 6. And the first thing I talk about is the instant success syndrome. You know, we see these people who have come out of nowhere overnight, and they seem to have massive success. But if you study them, what you'll probably find out is that they've been preparing backstage for a very long time. Just the sudden success appears as if they haven't been working at all up until that point. But for many of us, what we need to do is stop looking at the exception and start paying attention to the rules. If you follow the rules, then you'll be able to settle in for the long haul and make your dream become a reality. The rules tell us that it's going to take longer than we think, but we don't want to listen to that because we want the instant success. The rules tell us that we will have to work really hard for it, but we don't want to listen to that because we want instant success. The rules tell us success is more of a marathon than a sprint, but we don't want to listen to that because we want instant success. If there's anything that has caused more people to give up on their dreams, it's trying to create instant success. Because when they don't see it, they throw their hands up and just think, this is never going to work for me. Why can't I figure this out? And they begin to believe the victim mentality in their own life. But here's what I want you to do instead, and I talk about it in this chapter. I want you to have the ability to value the long term over the short term. There's a great quote from Peter Drucker that says this: we greatly overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. You see, this is true for all of us, and it's going to be true for you the further you get along in this journey. When you look back, you're going to be amazed at all that you accomplished. But you might be frustrated in trying to accomplish it all in a year. But the good news is everything you're doing is building on the next thing. It's what we call the brick by brick philosophy. And the brick by brick philosophy is you need to embrace the pre-profit days of your blog and be okay with it. So the brick by brick philosophy is this: every single blog post you write, every single podcast episode you record, every single video that you publish is laying another brick in a foundation that you're building that's going to be the ultimate success for you. Again, it may not happen overnight, but it can happen over time. So what I encourage people to do that are in this kind of no man's land, the messy middle that a lot of people call it, is you have to find fulfillment in the gap. You see, we have a gap between where we are and where we want to be. And the truth is, for most of us, that's never going to go away. I fill the gap. There are people who are more successful than where I am. So what do I do in order to overcome this. I find fulfillment in the gap. And let me share with you as we're closing this video a couple of key ways you can do that. Number one, appreciate any step that moves you forward. Just decide right now that any step that you're taking, it's exciting because it's moving towards something you're passionate about. Whether that is purchasing a new domain name, writing several new blog posts in a week, getting your first comment on your blog, making your first sale, getting a new subscriber, getting the first AdSense click for 10 cents, whatever it is, learn to appreciate any step that moves you forward. I remember my first product that I launched, and in the opening weekend, I earned $270. You would have thought that I just made $100,000. It opened up the world of possibility for me, and I was never more excited. Now, I had a long way to go, but I was excited because I had taken a step. Number two, embrace new discoveries you find along the way. So you're going to learn things as you move in this journey, and you need to stay open to learning things. But it's always better to fail forward. It's always better to take action. I tell people all the time that you should blog like a scientist, because scientists don't fail, they experiment. And you should have the freedom to do the same. Number three, have a real love for the journey. Do you love the journey? Well, you should. And number four, focus on finding ways to add value instead. You see, instead of worried about income, why don't you worry about adding value? Add value on the front end, and it makes the journey so much easier. So that's my challenge to you today. Embrace patience. Value the long term over the short term.